Negotiations to end the 3-year Russia-Ukraine war will begin as soon as possible. President Donald Trump made the announcement after a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin yesterday.
Trump is moving quickly to lay the groundwork for negotiations. European leaders say he might be moving too fast. Dale Hurd has the story.
Trump spent 90 minutes on the phone with Russian President Vladimir Putin, with the two leaders agreeing to start negotiations immediately to end the war between Russia and Ukraine.
I also had with President Zelenskyy a very good call after that. And I think we're on the way to getting peace. I think President Putin wants peace, and President Zelenskyy wants peace, and I want peace. I just want to see people stop getting killed.
The president said his first sit-down with Putin could be in Saudi Arabia soon, but also suggested he may go to Russia and that Putin might come to the United States.
I'll be dealing with President Putin largely on the phone, and we ultimately expect to meet. In fact, we expect that he'll come here and I'll go there and we're going to meet.
Trump indicated his second meeting will be with Ukrainian President Zelenskyy, who posted this photo of the phone call on X saying no one wants peace more than Ukraine. As President Trump said, let's get it done. In a meeting with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Zelenskyy said,
I'm thankful to the president, to his message that he will support Ukraine and he really wants to stop this war. And I know that he's a strong man, and I'm sure that he will push Putin.
Trump also indicated Ukraine would have to give up territory lost to the Russian invasion.
Well, he's going to have to do what he has to do, but, you know, his poll numbers aren't particularly great, to put it mildly.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth at NATO headquarters also all but ruled out Russia having to return Crimea to Ukraine, which Russia invaded and annexed in 2014.
We must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering.
This is similar to what Zelenskyy himself said earlier this year and at the end of last year, that it's not realistic. Ukraine doesn't have the ability to take back these territories by force. So Ukraine would be prepared to have a ceasefire and pursue the return of its territories by other means, diplomatic, political, and so forth.
NATO allies are insisting that Europe and Ukraine not be cut out of the peace negotiations. And Zelenskyy says he'll reject any deal that doesn't include Ukraine's input. Hegseth stressed the U.S. commitment to NATO and says the negotiations are not a betrayal of Ukrainian soldiers defending their nation. Meanwhile, in a historic move, Ukraine has established an annual National Day of Prayer. The date, February 24th, the anniversary of the Russian invasion. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Thank you, Dale. CBN senior international correspondent George Thomas has made many trips to Ukraine reporting on the war. He joins us now. George, what's the reaction from your Ukrainian contacts to this announcement?
A key pastor in Kyiv this morning, Andrew, sent me this note. He says, we are broken by the cynical policy towards Ukraine. Of course, we want the war to stop, but we know that Russia cannot be trusted. They always violate all agreements. We keep praying and believing for a just peace for Ukraine. Another person said, we have no illusions about the world and its values and priorities. We have lots of peacemakers, but very few allies. Everyone wants the war to end. But if you think that you're going to solve this by compromising with Russia, you need to know you don't understand them. They are just postponing this. They want to give Russia enough time to recover, and then they will attack us again. And a leading opinion in one of Ukraine's largest newspapers and widely held newspapers says, God bless America, but God help Ukraine and Europe fend for themselves.
Wow. The U.S. position is no NATO membership for Ukraine, no U.S. troops in Ukraine, and Ukraine should concede some of the land lost to Russia. How does this affect Ukraine's bargaining position?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Andrew, on the face of it, it does sound pretty awful that Ukraine really comes to the table really behind the 8 ball. But I think what Pete Hegseth and the president have always said, this is about getting an immediate ceasefire. So in these negotiations to get to that ceasefire, obviously talking about Ukraine entering NATO is a non-starter for the Russians. The whole idea of going back to the pre-2014 borderlines is also a non-starter. And the idea of deploying U.S. troops on the ground, again, this is the whole idea. The main focus of the Trump administration, and has been from the get-go of the campaign, has been to create the environment for an immediate ceasefire. And this is what the negotiations that the Trump administration has said will start immediately, is to get to this point, and these other issues will be dealt with later.
What about defending Ukraine? Are NATO and European nations going to step up and do so?
Look, I think what Pete Hegseth did yesterday at the Munich Security Council is to really send a very, very new message from this administration, that the United States' priority is no longer on the security of Europe. In fact, he went on to say that the Europeans should create this sort of shared labor. It's in your neighborhood. You guys need to take care of this. You need to provide the security guarantee for Ukraine. Zelenskyy said within hours of President Trump's phone call with Putin, says there is no condition that we can guarantee our own security with the Europeans unless the United States is involved in that equation. So we'll see in the days and weeks ahead what that security guarantee will look like for the Ukrainians.
All right, George, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
In all the turmoil there is in the world today, there is a source of absolute truth that will guide you.
Transform your life through God's Word, CBN's newest study guide. You'll also receive insightful teaching from Gordon Robertson, plus access to Regent University's online course.
You'll have all the information you need to guide your life.
Get Transform Your Life through God's Word. Available now.